So friends, welcome to this lecture series on ancient and medieval Western political thought. Today we are going to talk about Plato's scheme of education. Last day, we have discussed Plato's philosophy of education. And friends, today we are going to talk about how Plato suggested to the ideal stage the scheme of education or the curriculum of his education or the content of his education. Last day it was the philosophy, why people needs to be educated. Today it's not why people needs to be educated, it is how it is implemented, that philosophy, how Plato tried to implement that philosophy of education. And friends, as I told you in the previous lecture itself, we know that a good society is that society which gives prominence to the education of its citizen. So if you are able to provide quality education to its citizen, you can build a healthy society. So that's why all rulers, all governments, all political establishments throughout the world, throughout every stages in history, had given too much emphasis to education. So for example, you might remember the famous Macaulay Minutes. In Macaulay Minutes, that was released in the year 1835 by Thomas Babington Macaulay in 1835. In the Macaulay Minutes, the British Empire visualized that Britain needs a class of people in India, a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinion, in morals, and in intellect. So the kind of education that British Empire should give to citizens of India is such that after getting graduated from Indian universities or Indian school system, the person who are exposed to British style of education is not Indian in thinking, Indian in morals, Indian in intellect, or Indian in opinion. They are Indian only in blood and color. So that means Macaulay had an idea that you should intellectually indoctrinate the class of people who are educated from Indian education institutions. That's why, friends, British Empire had given emphasis to providing a British style of education. That way, Britain can intellectually control the people of India. So that's the case of, British Raj, which has given too much emphasis to educational aspects of their governance. So when coming to modern India, you will see that Nehru had this sort of an idea that, so you give so much emphasis to education so that a good class of people can be, brought up. They build a good India in the days to come. That's why Nehru had given so much emphasis to building institutions like Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Management, All India Institute of Medical Science, and other kinds of, BARC. So these kinds of institutions were Nehru's contributions. So friends, every government all over the world, pays so much emphasis to education. Maybe that is political, maybe that is cultural, maybe that is thought control, Maybe that is ideological, but anyway, education is an important tool. Thereby citizens can be controlled. If you are able to control your people intellectually, you can control their body. Even their physical body can even be controlled by controlling their ability to think. That's why, friends, from antiquity itself, societies had emphasis to given emphasis to providing a model of education. Thereby a society can be brought in the way in which we want to create it. So Plato was obviously the first philosopher or thinker in the world who proposed education in line of this way of thinking. So the basic pursuit of Athenian education during Plato's time, or even before Plato's time, was to create a good virtuous citizen. A good virtuous citizen. So citizens are educated. Citizens are educated means they also developed physically, spiritually, aesthetically, and morally. They should be developed physically, spiritually, aesthetically, and morally. A human being. So the goal of Athenian education, even before Plato, was to create the best possible citizens for the benefit of a whole community, for the benefit of the whole community, and not for his own personal development. Friends, education is not just for the personal benefit of the individual concerned. If you educate for your own personal gains, friends, we cannot say that you are educated. You are educated only if the kind of education that you have received is of use to the whole community. That was the idea of Athenian education. And Plato was not different. Plato had the same idea, friends. Therefore, even before Plato, this line of an educational system existed, as I told you. So before Plato, the curriculum of Athenian education was primarily composed of Homer's teaching. Homer, Iliad and Odyssey. So Homer's writings were textbooks with pedagogical feasibility, which were taught in their schools, in their education institutions. So children's treatment or children's education started from the family itself. When the child was at the preschool and the school age stage or the school age stage, the mother or the servant nanny played a very important role. The mother or the servant nanny played a very important role in the education of children. So Athenian education, friends, before Plato or during Plato's time, was divided into three stages. It was divided into three stages. The first one, primary, from 6th to the 14th year of the age of the child. From the 6th to the 14th year of the age. Secondary, primary, secondary. Secondary, from 14th to the 18th year. 14th to the 18th year. And third stage, 18th to the 20th year. So 6th to the 14th primary education, 14th to the 18th secondary education, 18th to the 20th the third stage, which they call higher studies. After 3 stages, friends, only the third stage was provided free of charge. Only the third stage was provided free of charge. That is, primary education and secondary education was the responsibility of the Athenian parent. It was the responsibility of the Athenian parent. But when you are in the higher studies from 18th to 20th, it was provided by the Athenian state, free of charge. So friends, during the primary stage in Athenian city-states, children learn grammar, music, and they are trained in physical exercises. Then they are first taught how to write. Then they are taught how to write. They will start reading mathematics. So after the child got elementary education, the child will be coming to contact with the heroic didactic means the Homeric and Hesiod style of writing. Homer and Hesiod was another poet of before Plato's time. So they will be taught in didactic learning and also lyrical poetry. So that means, at the primary stage as well as in the secondary stage, students will be exposed to poetry and different other educational contents like grammar, music, and physical exercises. But Plato suggested a different kind of education for Athens in his book Republic, as well as also Laws. That was his last book or last dialogue. And as I told in the previous lecture, Plato was the first philosopher who created a philosophy of education. In Platonic system of society or Platonic system of nation building, not nation building, state building or community building, education was the most important point to be considered for Plato. So too much emphasis was given to education. So only through education you can build a good community. If you have good schools, if you have good education, higher education institutions, if you have good educational content, if you have good reading list, this way only you will be able to create a good society. So Plato, that's why in Plato's thought system, in Plato's social engineering, education is the key. So as I told you in the previous class, the only thing that is real in the world is the world of ideas. That was Plato's scheme of philosophy. The reality is the world of ideas, and sensory world is not the real world. Therefore, the concept of education was meant to train you how to achieve the world of ideas. And right from primary education onwards, Plato has given emphasis to train you to achieve the world of ideas. That is reality. The essence of Plato's education is like this. You should subordinate individual to the community. So friends, it's a very important point that Plato has created an organic society, an organic society. And in the organic society, friends, individual has no individual existence or independent existence. An individual finds his pleasure, his happiness, eudaimonia, everything only within the community. So why you are imparted education? Education is imparted to you. For what purpose? To induct you into the community, not to let you live according to your senses. It's not meant for that. That Plato will never allow you to live or to lead a life according to your thoughts. Rather, Plato's society in advance train you how to think not for yourself but for the society as a whole. That way education conditions your mind. That's why, as a matter of critique to Plato, I can invite your attention to Jiddu Krishnamurthy's Freedom from the Known. That Jiddu Krishnamurthy has famously said, if you want to be really educated, what you should do is that you should unlearn all what you have already learned in your life. And real education is when an individual is able to unlearn all the things that he or she has already learned. That's why Jiddu Krishnamurthy has famously suggested his disciples, you should never read Bible, never Gita, never Quran, no sacred text, because they are all conditioning. If you read Quran, Quran is conditioning your mind. If you read Gita, that conditions your mind. If you read Bible, nothing other things happens. That will let you live according to the tenets of Bible. That's why. So this way, friends, Plato suggested a scheme of education in which you are trained not to live according to your senses or according to your worldview. Rather, your worldview is imparted into your head by an educational system by which your mind is conditioned for the society. Terrific idea, right? A terrific idea. So friends, so the only purpose of Plato's education is the conversion of the soul. The conversion of the soul. You have a soul and which have got three parts. The three parts. The intellect part, the courage part, and the appetite part. And what is the purpose of education? The purpose of education is to convert you. Convert you means convert your soul from senses. At present, your soul is completely surrounded by a focus on your senses, that is stomach or your appetite aspect, and change your soul from that commitment to appetite to reason, to prudence, that your mind, your soul needs to be converted from senses to prudence. That is only purpose of education. So friends, Plato suggested, as I told you, compulsory education, public education for both boys and girls. And for Plato, there are different stages in education. And it is a continuous process. It's a continuous process throughout the life. It's not like what we are going through at present, that right from childhood, you are going to school or colleges or universities and you will get a certificate. With that certificate, you go into the society or into the market and find a job and have your life. That is not the Platonic system of education. Platonic system of education is a type of vocational education in which citizens are given education. Thereby, you are made fit for each segments of society. There are different walks of life in the society. And the kind of education you will receive will make you fit for each walks of the life, or each walks of or social realms of the society. So Plato suggested different stages, and these stages are discussed in two books or two dialogues. One is Laws, and the other one is the Republic. And Plato suggested not a practical form of education, it's a highly an ideal form of education, a philosophic form of education. And friends, the first stage, what is the first stage? That 0 to 3 years from your foetal stage, that right from you are in your mother's womb to the age of 3, you will get education. And how you will get education? Plato says, an education, according to Plato's idea, or according to Plato, in an ideal society, in an ideal stage, Plato says, education begins before child is born. And family plays a key role in the physical and spiritual integration of the child. The pregnant woman is trained by the society or trained by the state. The pregnant woman is trained by the state to have a smooth and propitious childbirth. To have a smooth and propitious childbirth. And after the birth of the child, after the birth of the child, the slave of the home, every home will have a slave. The slave of the home takes up the upbringing, not the mother, not the father. The slave will take care of the upbringing of the child. And the slave will be responsible for the proper upbringing and physical integrity of the child. They walk together in the countryside or in sacred grazing In the event, the slave does not properly implement the task assigned to the slave, the state will punish her by the law of the state. And then Plato says the second stage begins from 3 to 6 years. The second stage begins from 3 to 6 years. In this period, boys and girls are trained together through toys and myth. You will be given toys and you will be given myth, stories, folklores, or national myth. Today we call it national myth. Those days, the myth of the polis. Because children need entertainment. That was stated by Plato in Laws, in his dialogue, Laws. Plato believed that games was of great educational significance. Therefore, the lessons of an ideal polis would have to take the form of a mental game. Moreover, for the philosopher, that Plato believes that each citizen is a philosopher. That Plato's idea is that all the citizens who are born in the polis should become a philosopher. That's why right from your foetal stage, state will give you education in the view that one day you will become a philosopher king. So the philosopher, the starting point of the education is connected with the desire of the individual, for harmonious movement. That was stated by Plato in Laws, Timaeus. These are two dialogues of Plato, Laws and Timaeus. This harmonious movement Individual desire, the desire of an individual is connected with the harmonious movement, which is expressed first in game itself, that children should be inducted into games, mental games. Then to dance, then you should induct them into dance. Then with music, later with poetry, between 3 to 6. The age 3 to 6, children should be inducted in first into mental games, then dance, then music, and finally poetry. And Plato believes at this stage, the foundation of a child's character is laid. This is a very important stage for Plato, 3 to 6 years of age. Very important stage where your character is built. At this age, you are 19 or 18 or 20 now. It's very difficult to give you character. It's very difficult because you have already grown up. Now you are at the thinking stage. Nobody can teach you how to have a good character. But 3 to 6 is an important stage. Somebody can intervene in you, and shape character. So until the age of 7, Plato says, until the age of 7, education is dedicated to physical education, because intellectual cultivation in young children prevents proper blood circulation, gland function, causes convulsions, epilepsy, sweat, prevents growth, destroys digestion and character. So Plato believes up to 7, you should not be given intellectual education, that your mind should not be given high task, philosophical task. At this age, until 7, you should be given more physical training. Plato has a reason for that, because intellectual cultivation until the age of 7 will be counterproductive. And according to Plato's philosophy, if you are exposed to intellectual kinds of things up to the age of 7, that will prevent you having proper blood circulation, gland function, and causes convulsions, epilepsy, sweating, unnecessary sweating, prevents growth, physical growth, destroy digestion even. And it also prevents you from developing good character. That's why this is a stage of exercises, physical exercises, and fun. And the third stage, 6 to 10 years, Plato says, children begin to practice systematic gymnastics, such as physical exercises, dances, weapons, how to use weapons, wrestling games, martial arts, music and poetry. So since 6th year, boys and girls have been given different kinds of training. And Plato believes boys and girls should be treated equally in terms of education. And the school is required to follow all children, boys and girls, whether or not their father wants them to have education. For the good of the city, the city itself gives you education, no matter whether you are boys or girls. The third stage of education, that is 6 to 10, according to Plato, the focus is on the art of dance. The art of dance, which is the first awakening of the organization. Awakening of your organization through physical mimetic movements, through physical and mimetic movements. And for Plato, this is also an age, a stage of education meant for physical growth, 6 to 10. 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 10. Then there is a fourth stage, 10 to 13 years. At this stage, the fourth stage, 10 to 13 years. At this stage, a child learns the lessons of how to acquire knowledge. This is the beginning stage of knowledge. Friends, for Plato, knowledge is not simply consuming some information that which we are all doing, that we learn so many things from in your classrooms, but actually the point is that whether you get knowledge, that's very important. And for Plato, since the age of 10, a child begins to learn knowledge. This is an appropriate age to bring the child to the world of knowledge. At that age of 10, that's a right and appropriate age. A child should be exposed to knowledge. So at the age of 10, a child's education is undertaken by grammarian who will teach you how to write, how to read, and how to do mathematics. And Plato asked the teachers to compose an anthology. The teachers should compose an anthology which will involve non-fiction as well as rhythmic works, which will help the development of the child's spirit. Non-fiction as well as rhythmic works or fiction that will help the development of child's spirit. And the fifth stage, 13 to 16 years. At this stage, the philosopher considers the duty of the state to educate future citizens. The duty of the state to educate future citizens really begins from this stage, 13 to 16, with appropriate musical stimuli, which Plato stated in his book Dialogue Laws. Harmony and rhythm penetrates into the hearts of their soul. Harmony and rhythm penetrates into the hearts of their soul. Music as well as poetry will have similar verbal expressions. So that it can cultivate the child's moral identity. And the sixth stage, 16 to 20. At this stage, students who successfully completed their education in two previous stages continue. That is, at the age of 16, you will have come through several stages, 10 to 13 and 13 to 16. That's very important. And at the age of 16, you will be inducted into a sixth stage of education. At this stage, Plato says, those who have successfully completed their education, and who have passed the test will continue. That there will be a screening test. And those who pass the screening test will continue for higher studies, 16 to 20. And in this stage, you will be following military training with arrows, with artilleries, and with military marches. And those who are not able to pass through the elimination test. We'll go into professional education and training, and will be inducted into artisan class. Then you will be inducted into artisan class. Then you are not given education. State thinks that your soul is in a low stage, and you are not having the taste of a philosopher king, and your taste is the taste of your stomach. You have only the appetite soul, so you are not fit for higher learning. So what is best for you is that you should become artisans, and state will give you enough training and will be inducted into various works, professional works. And all the children who managed to graduate all the grades will continue to a next stage right from 16th birthday till the 20th birthday. They will be having the body of the guardians. And these are the second part of the social hierarchy. The guardians are the second part of the social hierarchy. There is three hierarchies. At the top, philosopher king. Down, the guardian class. Third, the lower stage, the artisans. And already we have sent some people to the artisan class. And here, all people who are able to pass through the preliminary examination right from 16th age till the 20th age, they will be trained to become guardians. And guardians are the second part of the social hierarchy. And cornerstones in their education, or the content of their education, are music and gymnastics, along with teachings about reading, writing, and doing mathematics. And the master class. At the age of 20 birthday, when you have the 20th birthday, the most capable of the guardian's body, are subjected to a superior and more elaborate mental and moral training. So there will be a screening test at the age of 20. And this screening test, those who pass will be sent to higher studies, and those who do not will be sent to become guardians. And those who choose higher studies will again study from the age of 20 to the age of 35. And in this age, from 20 to 35, the student will get an opportunity to have a deeper study of mathematics. And from 30 to 35, Plato teaches them dialectics, that is philosophy. From 30 to 35, Plato teaches them philosophy. And again, at the age of 35, the state will ask you whether you continue in the educational scheme. If you say yes, you will be again given a 15 years of education. And that is pure philosophy. And for Plato, highest education is knowledge in philosophy. There is dialectics. A person can be said to be really educated when that person have a philosophy. All other education is simply information. All other education, the content you have learned from your school, is simply information. And knowledge is philosophy. That you will get right from the age of 35 onwards till 50. And highest level of education is dialectics, through which a citizen will develop the idea of good. The idea of the good is attained through this stage. So in this stage, the student will develop internal maturation, in which student will transform himself to the highest idea. So the excellent dialectic is the man who can identify the relationships of things, the relationship of things, and extract ideas from the soul. Ideas from the soul. So those who managed to reach the view of the good, what is good for the society, those of you who are able to reach to an idea of what is good for the society will be considered philosopher at the age of 50. Only at the age of 50 you will be considered a philosopher, because at that age you will become a master, a king. You will become a king. So there are no written rules of law in the Platonic stage. Why? There are no written laws in the Platonic state, because Platonic state is ruled by philosopher king. So that what the philosopher think is the law, because he has a notion of what is good for the society. He will never commit wrong, because he is trained and educated that way. So whatever he says, whatever he thinks, whatever he does is laws. So there is no written laws in the Platonic society. He is the Lord philosopher. A justice is given through the actions of the philosopher. Justice will be achieved in the ideal stage through the actions of the philosopher. So this is Plato's scheme of education. And by saying this, friends, Plato has emerged as one of the greatest educators in the history of mankind. Greatest educators in the history of mankind, because he was the first to link education to philosophy. Education to philosophy. The character of education in Plato directed the state ideal. The character of education in Plato directed the state ideal. Because the main goal of education is to mold the character, create responsible citizen, and able to defend the state. So friends, Plato's education is generally, it got certain basic features, like it is basically a state-funded education, a state-controlled education. State has great role in education. And above all, educating the children is the responsibility of the state, not that of the parents. Parents have no role in educating the children. So they are future citizens. So future citizens should be educated by the state itself. So that's it, friends. The crux or the main idea of Plato's education is building moral character. Moral character. A character that is good for the society, not for yourself, not for oneself, but for the society as a whole or the community as a whole. So your intelligence, your knowledge, your spirit, your courage, everything should be made for the society, not for your need. That's why Plato bans property for the citizen and wives for the citizen, because these two things will corrupt the man, because that will create a notion of mine and time. Mine and time. We will develop the notion of that is mine and that is yours. Since When man develops such a notion, society will become corrupt. So we should be able to think for the society, not for oneself. And that is possible only through education. That's why Plato banned, property as well as wives to his citizens. So that we will talk in another class. So friends, the floor is open for discussion. You can have questions.